Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the latest episode of Hawkeye Ronin on Disney+. And I really enjoyed this one. However, it still continues the trend of really good character development. And granted, we do get more movement on the plot here, but I mean, this is the 5th episode out of 6. And it's really interesting that this show has a kind of opposite kind of problem I usually have. Usually, the problem I have is that the plot has some potential and everything, but then it demands that characters act completely out of sync and in furtherance of advancing said plot. So, like, you could have an assassin that for some reason has to enter a French toast contest in order to get them next to, I don't know, some dude that has some information about something that doesn't become important until later on for a MacGuffin that will either save or destroy the world. Like, it's okay, but you're like, if the assassin doesn't cook French toast, doesn't really, like, or like has some aversion to it, it's just like, alright, cool. It's always kind of weird. Here, I really like the character developments that we're getting, but they needed to work harder to connect everything. Because we kind of get some of that here, but again, it's how late it is. So we actually start off with a really good opening. That actually really doesn't further the plot that much, but it really gives us more insight into Yelena's character and actually stuff that deals with Thanos' snap and the return from the blip 5 years later. So this is the stuff that I really wanted MCU shows to really get into, because we see that it's in 2018. She's going on her mission to deprogram other Black Widows. She's actually got a partner Black Widow with her. They get into this house, get this one chick, Annie, and they like spray her with the MacGuffin stuff. And she's like, this rug costs like $20,000. Like, and she's like not affected with it because evidently she's had broken free of it or something. It's really kind of weird. I mean, I'm glad that they're able to find another kind of Black Widow that had like gotten out of it, but since we had been shown in the Black Widow movie that this seemed to be the only way to really like break the kind of chemical and mind control conditioning that they had kind of came up cocktail wise, we kind of need a little bit more information with that. But she's talking about how, yeah, she owns this shit herself, she runs this shit, she pretty much uses her skills of killing people to make her living and everything like that. She then inquires into what they're doing going around, that they've helped many Black Widows, even though like Yelena doesn't get any kind of numbers or whatnot. And she's like, alright, maybe I could help you or whatnot and everything. And she's like, alright, cool. And she goes off to the bathroom, and then we see that she turns to dust and then comes back like almost like nothing happened. This is really kind of cool because this is the first time that we get an actual kind of first-hand account of somebody being blipped out and then blipped back in, and that kind of confusion and state, because it was actually very well handled, because she's in the bathroom in like 2018, then she comes back in like 2023 and it's completely changed and everything. She's freaking the fuck out, and she's like, we see like this man and this little girl being like, who the hell are you? And she's like, who the fuck are you? And then Annie pops up and like, oh yeah, it was 5 years and Yelena is trying to process this. She's like, yeah, we can help you and everything like that. We can bring you in and everything. We can get through everything, get you all sorted out. And she's like, I'm just trying to process that I lost 5 years. And she's like, yeah, I'm sorry. And the thing is, one of the great kind of strengths of this show is that you're able to kind of like get both sides. Like, I get Yelena being like, I lost 5 years of my life. I was in that bathroom, and then I popped back in, and like, that kind of confusion was very well conveyed and very well shown. And then she's like, what about Natasha and everything? And then, of course, that leads to all the events that we're pretty much seeing now. What this does, though, is it kind of does some retconning of Natasha's kind of motivations for Endgame. Because she's, like, talking about the family that she found and everything, and I would assume that what we're trying to get here is that it's adding the additional motivation, even though we didn't know about Yelena and everything with the Black Widow program, is that Nat also chose to sacrifice herself to bring back her sister, since she would have learned that Yelena, after trying to contact her, had poofed, dusted. Now, I don't really like this, because I kind of liked that Nat's whole thing in Endgame was that she was trying to bring back her found family. Now, granted, I don't have a problem with the Yelena being done and retconned into that, but it's like, it just makes it more messy than it needs to be. I don't mind it after the fact, but it just goes to show the kind of nuttiness of trying to like insert Black Widow in between Infinity War and Endgame and what was kind of going on in there. Like, I don't like its execution, not that I don't like its adding character depth to Yelena and Natasha. That's my whole thing with that. However, I do like that we're exploring this with somebody that was dusted and brought back. So I'm like, okay, that was kind of weird, but I'm glad we kind of saw it. So we see that we're back in our present day, like actually like 2025 kind of thing, dealing with Kate coming back to the apartment and just really upset. And Eleanor tries to comfort her and everything, kind of like help her wounds and everything. And she told her what Clint said. I'm like, I really get her being upset. That's like if I was in the MCU and Captain America told me to go home. You know what I mean? Like, I get that kind of like breaking and just being that upset that this hero that you've got, even though he's got the best intentions and doesn't want to see another partner die, it hurts. And Kate really sells that. Like, it doesn't feel overly dramatic. It doesn't feel over the top. It's not like she's throwing a tantrum and being like, I want to be Hawkeye. It's very well done. She's got the pathos of like, this person that I've looked up to since they saved my life in the Battle of New York told me to go home, and how that kind of like affects her mind and how she's trying to like figure it out, because she pretty much gets into kind of like a depressive state of being like, I guess I gotta do other things, and Eleanor tries to like help her with that. But the thing is, I didn't get it until after the episode. She's like, yeah, sometimes life takes all these twists and turns and everything like that. And I'm like, huh. Whenever somebody says that, that usually tells me that they've done some kind of weird-ass, shady shit. Now, granted, it's mainly what kind of source that it's coming from, and I think it was kind of trying to foreshadow. And she's like, hey, there's a lot of different kind of ways to help people and stuff like that. And Kate asked her if she felt bad for like getting her first bow and arrow and stuff like that. She's like, what? No, you look cute with it. And then she keeps kind of like looking up to that and trying to figure out what's going on with it. Now, we then also get that Kate is like, listen, we looked into Jack, and she needs to like look into him too, because he's connected to Sloan, it's connected to the Tracksuit Mafia and everything like that. You kind of have to do that. And she's like, all right, I'll kind of look into that. And then she's like, all right, why don't you go to your place, get some stuff, and stay here. Let's see. We also see, now granted, I might be going a little bit out of order here, but I'm just trying to kind of like hit my different bases. We also see that Clint decides to go look up on grills in his apartment. I was kind of confused. I didn't know if they were at the kind of safe house place for Kate's aunt, but it was Grill's place, and he had the dog and everything, and he was just like, we see that Clint is dealing with it in his own way. He's kind of gone quiet. He's like, yeah, okay, cool, I'll look at that stuff later, trying to like ice himself up and everything from the fight, petting the dog, who's the dog's acting like a good boy, a good dog. And even though we don't see him really talking about it or really even emoting that much about it, we do see that it still does kind of like affect him. It's really kind of weird that like, even though Captain America is like my favorite and the one that I like identify with the most, they've done a very good job of doing Hawkeye's character to the point of like, Jesus, I do some of the similar kind of stuff and I get it. Like, sometimes I don't vocalize all the kind of stuff that's in my head or whatnot, or some of my feelings, and just seeing him try and like process and problem solve the way he does really is similar to mine. And it's really kind of cool that they were able to make me connect with him and even see how he kind of like deals with things. I'm like, all right. Well, we see that Kate goes back to her apartment, sees that it's like pretty much shut down, and she's kind of freaked out because the window's open, and we see that Yelena's there, dressed in pretty much kind of like civilian stuff. And this, I really did like Yelena's character in Black Widow. That's kind of like one of the high spots for me, because they were able to juggle her propensity for like comedy and like her ability to just do funny ass fucking shit, and her seriousness when things called for it. And this scene here between Kate and Yelena is fucking awesome. Like, you actually really get a feel for kind of like both characters, because Kate's like, holy fucking shit, this is a Black Widow, and she's taking it seriously. And we see she's like, hey, hello, Kate Bishop. How you doing? I made some macaroni and cheese. And how she likes mac and cheese. Bringing up, of course, her father, Red Guardian. But she's like, come on, sit down, have some mac and cheese. And of course, she eats a little bit because she's like, what the fuck's going on here? Fucking assassins made me mac and cheese. And the thing is, you have to be careful here, alright? What can happen is that tones can be disconnected and it just fucking doesn't gel. Here, you get the funniness of the situation of an assassin coming in and being like, you know what, I made some mac and cheese, man, and I'm looking forward to eating this shit. And she's like, yeah, alright, cool, man. And they're like, she's been dealing with the spies and, like, the hitman kind of stuff that her life usually does, killing people. She's like, yeah, I haven't really been here before, like, on my own kind of shit, even though I'm here on work to kill Clint Barton. And she's just eating it and puts her own hot sauce and stuff. It's really good because it's funny because you're like, an assassin has made mac and cheese in my house. But then you also get the seriousness of, if this person wanted to kill me, I would have been dead at the door. And she's like, yeah, that would have happened. And the way she kind of goes through it, I just love her attitude and how she's able to kind of like sell it. I do really look forward to seeing Yelena more in the MCU, whether that be a kind of gray kind of role, similar to like Loki's, where she sometimes is a villain, sometimes is a hero, and kind of like changes up depending upon what she thinks the situation calls for. Or how she will eventually kind of like get the full kind of story. Because she's like, yeah, I'm here, I'm gonna like see what's going on in New York, Rockefeller Center and all that, and Kate's like, oh yeah, that's all good. And the thing is, Kate really sells of like, I am in an uncomfortable situation, I can tell her about stuff for New York, but I'm afraid that I'm gonna get killed, and like, she understands the danger of the situation she's in. She's like, if I fuck up, even though she doesn't want to kill me at this point, I gotta wash my ass. And she's just like, it's really kind of weird because, not weird, but like awesome, because most of the time in the series, even though we've seen her in dangerous situations, she kind of has this swagger and confidence. Here, she doesn't have that. She's like, no, holy fucking shit, I'm actually afraid. And you can kind of see the gears turning as she's trying to figure out how to go through this conversation. And we see her kind of like bringing that kind of stuff up, just kind of wanting to see New York, and then, of course, bringing up how well she knows Clint. And, of course, she really doesn't. Bringing up his stuff about Ronin and about how, yeah, I don't care what you say about someone, it's what they do. And it's like, yes, but you have to understand the context of what they do it for. You know what I mean? Because she, of course, is still having on the whole stuff with Clint coming back from Vormir with the Soul Stone, and Natasha not. But see, the thing is, she doesn't have the full story. Someone was able... Well, of course, I think she wants to know a little bit more about what was going on with, like, Clint and Natasha, but she... The only people that would really know what was going on with Vormir is Clint, of course the Red Skull that nobody would really know about, and Natasha, and then kind of like the rest of the Avengers as they were told. Now granted, I could definitely buy that Natasha wouldn't trust what the Avengers would be saying because they're friends with Clint, and sometimes you like would vouch for your friend no matter what. But the thing is, Clint didn't lie. He probably didn't tell most people kind of like what was going on there because of the pain. You know what I mean? You see that he tries to deal with that inwardly as much as possible and does not really open up much except to like his wife, which they have a very good relationship. I really like their relationship. But we see that like Kate is kind of not buying her thing, but she's like, all right, well, tell me, do you know where Clint is? And she's like, no. And the thing is, she's got some ideas of places where Clint would be, but of course she doesn't know exactly where he is. Probably. And that kind of helps her out here because the thing is, she's not really lying. And of course Yelena would probably be able to figure out how she would be lying in this kind of situation because of how amped up she is. She's like, alright, fine. Just, I'll do my thing because I've been sent here to kill him. And before she leaves, even though she's been kind of like, not flippant, but like kind of funny throughout, she goes into serious mode. I'm like, don't get in my way again. She's like, I don't want to kill you, but don't get in my way again. And she drops out, fucking cool ass style. I'm like, I really like that scene. And it's like, okay, so somebody wants Clint dead and hired the Black Widow to do it. Now, granted, Yelena with the information that she was fed by the Countessa from Black Widow. Yeah, she would have more of a personal stake here to actually go for it. So we'll have to see if Countessa was like the intermediary to kind of doing that or whatnot. And we then see that Kate goes back to the apartment. We see that Jack is being arrested. It's like, oh, don't worry, I'll get this all done and everything. That Eleanor had, her mom had brought everything up, and she like said, I'm sorry, and everything like that. It's like, huh, okay, we'll kind of have to see how that kind of works out. We then see that Kate is in her room thinking about everything, looking at the bow and arrow, and then goes on like a crazy funny ass calling spree, talking to Clint, trying to like get him to like talk to her and everything and fix the situation. Also bringing up like yeah, the Black Widow showed up at my place looking for your ass kind of shit. It's like, yeah, I gotta need to talk to you about this. And she like filled up his voice message, and it worked out pretty well. Like, I could definitely see how if that was not executed as well, it would have annoyed the fucking shit out of me. Let's see. That might be kind of where Clint kind of gets back into the effect and fold, and that he's trying to figure out what to do. So he knows that a widow's involved. He brings that up with his wife. He's like, okay, we gotta protect the person with the watch. Now, I have a theory of who the watch belongs to. There's been a lot of kind of other things. I'm like, okay, what's going on? But it's after we get through everything down here and we get to the end of the episode that I'll bring up my theory more. But we need to protect this person. And Clint's like, listen, I gotta do this thing. I don't like having to do this. All right. He also goes to the Avengers Memorial, actually takes out his hearing aid and talks to Natasha. And it's a very, really nice moment. It really definitely showcases and tells us how important Natasha was to him. She's like, I'm sorry, I'm going to do what I have to do. And I think mainly he never really touched the Ronin outfit and the sword again after what Nat went through to honor her sacrifice, to actually really put the words of that Natasha killed Ronin to bed, and that it actually kind of hurts him that he has to put on this suit and act out in that kind of way that he's tried to put behind him and try to not be that man. And it's very well sold. It's like, okay, cool. So he decides to we see the fucking Tracksuit Mafia, the two main funny ass guys that we're dealing with. They're like, yep, doing this shit, and we see an arrow go through, and it's essentially like a text message. You're like, Maya, meet me where I pretty much killed your father. Like, where your father died. It's like, we're not Maya. It's like, god damn, you're dumb. And the thing is, I can deal with stupid characters when they're dealt with in a funny kind of manner and a not like annoying kind of manner where it's like, this person is dumb, like constantly. I get it a couple times, and that's what they've done with this Tracksuit Mafia dude. And even the other dude's like, are you for real? Like, honestly, like, this person, like, couldn't get in contact with her, so they sent the message to us, who would be able to give it to her. Well, we see that Maya is pretty much getting her wounds treated by Kazi, and he's like, listen, alright, I will help you with this, but after this, when he's dead, it's done. Because of what Clint did as Ronin, she has the same kind of thirst for vengeance and everything because of what was going on. But Clint does bring up an important point after this whole thing gets down and him and Maya get to talk. So, we get this pretty great scene as... It's really kind of weird. I'm partial to ninjas. You know what I mean? I really like the kind of idea and the mystique of them, but this really sold, like, Clint as a ninja and doing all this stuff. They're at that parking lot with all these cars and everything, and we see all these people around. She was told to come alone, but fucking anytime you are in a movie or in a TV show or even in real life and somebody's like, come alone, you never fucking do that. Like, you'd have to fucking trust them completely. And, of course, Clint knows that they wouldn't trust him. And it's funny, we see Kazi with a sniper rifle out, we see, like, the guys moving in between the cars, I'm like, he's gonna come right out from the outside in, and then come for Maya. And that's exactly what he does, and I'm just like, even though I was like, okay, tactical situation, this is how I would do it. And to see Clint execute it so well, and awesomely, because this series knows how to do action scenes. Granted, there are cuts and everything, but action is clear. We see him take out Kazi at the sniper. We see him going through and like taking out people silently and then a little bit louder and everything. They're like, ah shit, as they pretty much keep getting taken out. And then we have the great kind of fight scene as we see between Clint in his Ronin persona versus Maya. And what I just kind of thought of, it's a nice juxtaposition between how he fought her as like Hawkeye with his bow and arrow versus how he fought her with Ronin and the sword, because it was a different style and he had control of the situation this time, whereas before he was kind of on the back foot. Here he is bringing the fight on his terms, and she of course is enraged because it's in the Ronin getup and she wants to avenge her father, thereby letting her emotions take a hold of her. And the thing is, they still have a nice back and forth. Like, he doesn't completely kick her ass, but he's able to kind of like muck with her because of like her prosthetic leg and understanding how to utilize his sword to like get her into certain positions and everything. It's like, damn, this is kind of shit that, like, if the plot had been better constructed and worked throughout. So even though I like this stuff and even though there's problems, I'm like, when you do the good stuff with the action scenes and are able to showcase character development in that, because that's an important thing. You can't just have an action scene and just be like, oh yeah, it's big action, boo 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 boo, because that's not utilizing it to its full potential. Here, we see Clint's different kind of style with his Ronin sword and everything, and Maya being pissed off more, whereas in the first one, she was more focused on what she was trying to do. Her emotions have gotten to her. So, he's able to pretty much get her down, and he then, of course, takes off his mask and talks with her. Now, granted, it's a mix between her reading his lips and him kind of talking to her and being like, listen, I'm doing this not because I don't want to kill you, but I want you to stop coming after my family, and otherwise I will do what I need to do to protect my family. And then he kind of brings up, like, the thing is, we are the same. We're weapons, and you're being pointed at me because of certain reasons, because here's the thing. I got tipped off about your father. Somebody wanted him out of the picture, and they knew that Ronin was going around for the underground people, so they gave him a target. And that kind of then starts to kind of get like, Maya doesn't really kind of go for it first, but she's like, what? But we see that she's like not dealing with it, pretty much gets him in a compromised position, getting ready to pretty much kill him before Kate actually saves him. Like, she, of course, now we didn't really get as much kind of like build up to this. She's like, yeah, I tracked your phone and stuff, and saved him. He did get injured and everything. Oh, and their costumes are up, as girls talked about when Hawkeye was at the apartment, but they don't have it now, and they're like, all right, cool, let's kind of get out of here and kind of figure out what's going on. She got an Uber to kind of get out of there and get them into kind of a safe spot where they get back to like girls and kind of have their own little powwow. Let us see. And of course they're talking about everything, and that it's like, all right, let's and it was kind of nice to kind of see him kind of get back together and everything like that. Damn it, got a little bit of brain fog going on right now. I don't think anything really, really big kind of happened. Just, of course, everything going on with the Black Widows, everything going on with Maya, and what he was trying to do to kind of like get this whole situation with the Ronin outfit under control, and everything going on with Jack. Then we get some two important scenes. We see that Maya gets back up with Kazi, and she starts asking him questions about like the night her father was killed. And he's like, yeah, he came up on me, I'm sorry. She's like, okay, why weren't you at the meeting when my father was killed? And she's like, I didn't know, I didn't get the call and anything like that. And the thing is, most of the Tracksuit Mafia, there's not really enough characters for you to be like, hey, who could be like the informant? It's like, yeah, Kazi. I don't know why, since he seems really wants to be really together with Maya. Kind of, I don't know if it's like he wants to be together with her, or that he wants that boss relationship of like he wants her to be in charge and actually in charge. If the father was in the way or whatnot, but she's got things going in her mind. It's like, okay, so we're definitely seeing the wheels turn and her turning, and it's like, okay, what if the uncle was? Why would her uncle do this kind of shit? So we get towards the end of the episode and we start seeing some interesting things pop up. We see that Yelena is following Eleanor. What the fuck is she looking for? Okay. She follows her into this kind of building, and well, not into the building, but we see her in her kind of like civilianized getup, so that way she can track more efficiently. We then see that Hawkeye and Kate are at grills, having a nice kind of meal and everything. It's kind of the morning. It's getting closer and closer to Christmas, and then she gets a text from Yelena being like, yeah, I got some info for you. Kate Bishop, your mother was the one that hired me to kill Clint Barton, and I thought you would like to know who she's meeting with. And she looks at it and is like, what the fuck? And then shows it to Hawkeye, and he's like, yep, this is the person that I was afraid would get involved. Kingpin. And it's the same Kingpin that was from the Netflix Daredevil the Netflix Daredevil show. It's like, oh shit! And we got the Kingpin put up here, and that's big for a street level villain. Now, I talked about how I had certain kind of theory for who the watch belonged to. I think this is setting up that the watch belongs to Matt Murdock, Daredevil, as we have already seen that the Daredevil from the Netflix show has been confirmed to be coming into the MCU. And I did not expect that kind of thing, but granted, Daredevil and Kingpin are, well, granted, any superhero within New York City is pretty much connected with Kingpin as a villain at some point or another. However, Kingpin has a lot of history with Daredevil, and I'm thinking that Daredevil would be the one connected to the watch, potentially like it was his father's watch, as they kind of bring that up. Now, granted, that's not, I don't have the most kind of evidence for that. That's just my theory at this moment. Now, granted, I could be completely and utterly wrong, and then we're going to get another kind of like person who the watch belongs to or whatnot, because there's also been theories that it would belong to like Barton's wife. That's fine, but if you're bringing in Kingpin like this and linking him up with Eleanor like this, it's presenting a lot of interesting problems for both Hawkeye and Kate Bishop and Jack, and we'll have to kind of see what's going on. I even actually saw a theory that the watch could potentially belong to Jack, and that he's been undercover conning this whole thing, because Swordsman has also been an Avenger. However, his track record is kind of weirder in that he tried to like blackmail his way onto the Avengers team, and is, depending upon how he's done, we'll kind of have to see how they're working out. He is the most kind of like disappointing character for me here. Granted, he has a lot of interesting comedy stuff, but the thing is, he's kind of like red herring to be kind of like the villain through whole time, whereas now we're getting pretty much that Kingpin is the one. And I don't mind that. However, if you're doing 6 episodes, I believe that if you're going to leave a bombshell like this, it should be in episode 3, so that way you have adequate enough time to like delve into that character, delve into that conflict, and really set up for a climactic battle for that. Not in episode 5. That means you've got to do a lot of shit to kind of deal with what's going on with that. So, we'll have to see. I'm glad that we've got Kingpin in the MCU. That's a big thing, and that's cool. I'm glad we have Yelena in the MCU. She's a very interesting character, and I like how she kind of, like, does scenes. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to be doing with Kate and everything. It's just, they need to keep working on these problems. Like, I have noticed that certain shows have been getting better as we've started the initial rush of the MCU more connected TV shows. Now they just need to keep like going and actually like hammering out these details, because granted there are problems, but if you learn from your problems and your mistakes and actually make them better and go forward and kind of work with that, then that's not a problem. That's what they're supposed to do. The only mistake you ever make is not learning from a mistake. That's my kind of philosophy on that. Like, if you're a kid and you, like, accidentally touch something hot, and are like, okay, that's hot, I don't want to do that again. It's not really a mistake. You've learned something. You've learned a lesson, and as long as you're, like, careful around that kind of stuff, you're good. You know what I mean? Like, the only mistake would be like, ha, 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 ha. I was like, why the fuck are you doing that? I don't fucking know. Okay, then. So, I am excited to see what kind of ramifications these are going to be having throughout the MCU and where we're kind of going to be going in Episode 6. I do not envy them on Episode 6 because it would have to be pretty long to kind of do the things that I think it adequately needs to more set in tone the overall plot and the overall objectives of what they've got to do. I think we're definitely getting set up that Kate is going to be like mainly the active Hawkeye archer within the MCU, with Clint pretty much being in that semi-retired state of like he'll be out with his family, but if something big enough comes along, they'll like pull him in as like a guest cameo, which honestly, if you can pull that off with any kind of franchise where you do really kind of well, you like recognize as a hero, and then you could be pulled back and forth on there. Do that, like, and it's done well. Like, they don't pull your character out just to essentially be like, hey, ugh, and then like disappear for like a butterscotch or something. It's weird. It's like utilize it effectively, and then just be like, yeah. I mean, like, I'd fucking do that if I got like some kind of character. I did a great kind of story arc and everything, and then just put me on like, okay, you're kind of retired, but if we kind of want a kick-ass cameo, we'll call you. I'm like, damn straight, motherfuckers. That's how I do that. So that's kind of where I think that's going to be going, and I do think that they're doing a pretty good job setting up Kate, but they're also doing a really good job of setting up Hawkeye's character, which is crazy because we get to a point that, like, I could understand why people are like, why the fuck is this Archer-ass motherfucker in the Avengers? And then we get to this point, it's like, damn, he's actually pretty cool. We better keep bringing him back in some points because we actually did a really good kind of character here. Now, granted, if you close out the story well enough, I don't mind leaving that character alone, you know? Because then you're like, good, you know what I mean? So, I enjoyed this, even with its problems, and hopefully Marvel learns from these problems and either gives more episodes for stories, or does a better work at tightening stories around for what's going on. Because, granted, I have seen improvements with these shows. Now, granted, it's more kind of incremental, but we'll kind of have to see. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.